Hey, No I listeners, I want to talk about art today. And if you're wondering why that matters, well, like I talked about in the last episode, the story of reality that we tell ourselves matters a lot, but so do the stories that we partake in this life. So this is actually based on an article that I read a couple of weeks ago in the Wall Street Journal, and it was looking at what entertainment might look like in 20 years. Again, you may be asking, why is this important for the Know Why podcast? Well, I think that it sparks a lot of conversations we should be having right now about what it really means to be human. Is there truth and beauty and goodness? And are they objective, subjective, and do they matter at all? I'm going to go through some reasons why I think we should talk about this and why how we understand art and entertainment really helps us to understand life and the nature of reality. So let's jump in. So the article quotes Mike Bechtel, who is a futurist and professor at University of Notre Dame. And he says any entertainment experience worth having is going to be a hybrid of spatial and digital in the next 20 years. And of course, a lot of this is talking about how artificial intelligence specifically will impact entertainment. And so he said, as we embrace more of what he thinks will be virtual and augmented reality in live entertainment, customization is also going to play a big part. So I'm just going to read a little bit from the article here. He says that allowing individual audience members to experience different versions of the same show is going to be big. And we're not talking about VR sets, virtual reality headsets that people wear today, but those will be replaced by unobtrusive devices, perhaps embedded in contact lenses or even brain-computer interfaces. Okay, pause. What's a brain-computer interface? It's also called BCI. Think Neuralink, like Elon Musk has been spearheading. So these basically BCIs or contact lenses could allow individual audience members to customize a movie, for example, by skipping scenes they don't like, changing the audio, or even choosing separate plot paths. It's like those old choose your own adventure books, Bechtel says. I'm choosing my own adventure scene by scene. With brain-computer interfaces, we could think about what we want to happen next, or the movie could adapt based not on your own preferences, but on your physical signals. Get this. Here's another quote. Maybe you don't know what you want to have happen next, but your heart rate and autonomic nervous system suggest you're a little too wound up. So we're going to spare you the terror scene and move you right to the happy ending. You don't even have to decide what you want to happen next. It's just going to monitor your physical symptoms that you're exhibiting and move you along to what it thinks that you need to see. Okay, so those are some of the predictions. And as we are seeing, it's heavy on customization. Now let's ask ourselves, is that a problem? Is customization a bad thing? Wouldn't it be better if we could all get the kind of entertainment that we personally want to see and prefer? Well, first of all, that's kind of a false dichotomy because art is already very customized because there are so many options. In fact, there's almost too many options in existence already, whether it comes to music, books, movies, TV shows. There's something for practically every taste out there. And I have a little bit of a bone to pick with this, but in the book industry specifically, it's already highly marketed based on predictable tropes and genre norms. So for instance, if you want to look for a particular kind of book based on your preferences, you can look for a book that is marketed as a romance novel that has a certain level of spice that you wanted to have, for instance, or not have. You can look for something that has certain tropes like enemies to lovers or friends to lovers or found family. And you know, based on those tropes and those genre norms, essentially what's going to happen in the story. Now, some people may not like that, but other people really like the predictability of that. And so we already have a highly customized system when it comes to books and movies and everything else. And the social media algorithms help that as well, because what do they show you on your feed when you're scrolling? Ads for things that they think you're going to want to see based on your past activity online and the things that you've bought and the movies that you've gone to see and the shows that you subscribe to, etc. But even with that level of customization or options that we have before us, I think that we are missing something, because if really we just think, okay, art is entertainment and it's based on preference and I'm going to find what I like, then what is stopping you from going to the movie theater in 20 years, having a BCI or a contact lens, and having everybody just watch the version that they want to see? Now, the latter part of that futuristic prediction may seem a little off to you, but if art is purely entertainment based on choice and taste, then is there anything wrong with having every single movie experience be a choose your own adventure? Is it wrong for something else to maybe sense what you are going to like or not like algorithms already do, but instead of the removal of it being on a screen that you hold, just already being connected to your brain and then presenting you a story based on what it thinks your preferences are going to be? What's actually wrong with that? Well, here's why I think it's wrong. Art is more of a conversation, and that's how we need to think of it. It's a conversation with the artist, with the community, and even with ourselves. Now, of course, every now and then those choose your own adventure novels or choose your own ending, options, those can be kind of a fun twist. But if that becomes the default rather than the exception, then art is just another product to consume. It's not a gift from the artist's heart, from their own creativity. It's not a message that the artist thinks is important to share. It's not a conversation to be had or a challenge to be given. It is simply another product that you buy and consume. So why does it matter that art is a conversation? Well, one of the first reasons is because it does challenge us. Books, movies, plays, they challenge us, and they should, because sometimes they're uncomfortable. Think about a movie that you have seen or a book that you've read that really made you uncomfortable. Maybe it was dealing with a dark time in history and it made you uncomfortable to read about humans being treated a certain way. Or maybe you watched a movie about some historical event or a war, something that somebody else has gone through that wasn't exactly pleasant. That maybe made you uncomfortable, and it should have, because it challenged you to think about a perspective that you don't naturally have or an experience that you haven't had. One of the great benefits of reading, and there are many, is that reading can broaden somebody's sense of empathy. But other art forms can do that as well, because it allows us to see through the eyes of another perspective, another experience, in addition to many other things. And when you watch something or read something that makes you think in a different way or a deeper way, if it opens your eyes to something that somebody else may experience that you don't, that is worth it. We know in every other area, whether it's fitness or studying, we don't learn without some discomfort. That's why they say no pain, no gain. So it's the same thing if we want to think about our own character formation, our understanding of the world, our empathy. We need to be challenged, and good art can challenge us in a healthy way. But another reason that art is like a conversation, and we need to think about it as such, is because it can literally form cultures. And in fact, historically, throughout all of human history, art has been essential in forming different cultures. I'm going to share a little bit from Nadia Williams' book, Christians Reading Classics. I've interviewed Nadia on the Know I podcast and on Point of View Radio talk show, and I highly recommend her latest book. And here's something that she talks about. She writes about ancient Greco-Roman culture, and specifically when she was talking about Athens, she said, the story of Athenian dramatic festivals, with their performances of tragedies and comedies for the public at state expense, is inseparable from the story of Athenian democracy. So she is connecting democracy with story here, with the live performances that they had. She goes on to write, Athenian dramatic performances tried to inculcate a shared sense of virtue in the citizens through giving them a unified body of shared literature over which to think, weep, agree, and quite often disagree. So those that were in charge in ancient Athens, they understood the importance of having a shared culture among their citizens. They understood that art was formative, and I'll talk more about that in just a moment, and rather than just informative, and that it played a huge part in shaping the character of their citizens. They understood the importance of this so much so that they actually, the state or the city-state, sponsored these performances. But we may not want to go all the way into state-sponsored artwork, but even without that, again, throughout history, stories have formed cultures. They do give people a shared body of art to converse over as a people. In fact, the definition of culture is a set of values shared by a subset of the population, and it includes art, because those are our collective memories. Think about a movie or a book that you've had a conversation about with a friend. If you are in a class or even a book club, or you meet somebody and you realize that you've read the same book series, or you watch the same TV show, or you have the same favorite movie, some of those discussions can be so fun, and they can also be really deep. And even if you disagree, I actually like whenever I have disagreements or arguments with friends over a movie or a book or a TV show, because it not only is it fun to talk about those things, you really get to see how unique every person is, because different people have different reactions to different stories. They have different perspectives. They have different things that they pick up on that's going to be totally different than what somebody else did. And not only do you have something that you share between you that becomes a collective memory, you actually learn more about the other person. And that is why those collective memories, that shared body of literature or movies that belong to a particular culture, are key to forming that culture and retaining it. We already are divided as a culture here in America, and you know that. How much more divided would we be when everybody goes to the movie theater? They're not even all seeing the same movie. One of the things that the Wall Street Journal article talked about was people leaving the movie, and instead of talking about the movie itself, they would all talk about the different ending that they experienced. But that wouldn't be shared, though. They could tell each other, like, well, mine had this and mine had this, but it wouldn't be shared. They would really kind of be talking past each other rather than having the same shared story that they just experienced and then having disagreements about that. So if art gets to a point where it is 100% customizable, then it's going to stunt our already divided culture, and we will have no culture. And there are already, like we said earlier, so many options, right? That there are subcultures within American culture. There are people who like this kind of book or this kind of music or this kind of movie, and cultures form around those genres and subgenres. But that is part of the beauty of that, is because people are finding something that objectively exists, and they are coalescing around that because they have things to discuss about it. They are reacting to the gift that the artist gave, that the message that the artist wanted to share. And they might disagree about exactly what it meant, but they're reacting to something that objectively exists. If everybody has a customizable story that's unique to them, then there's nothing shared that you can react to or really even discuss. Everybody's going to be more isolated and live in their own version of reality more than ever. And again, if everything is customizable, then you don't grow. And that leads me to my next point, which is that reading and other forms of artwork is formative, not just informative. So this idea I took from On Reading Well by one of my favorite authors, Karen Swallow Prior. If you are trying to spark your reading habit and really improve there, or if you have a high schooler that you're in charge of, then read this book or give it to somebody else. It's the first book about literature that I read as an adult, and it's so good. But yes, art is formative, not just informative. So what do you do when you read a book or you watch a movie or a TV show and you're reacting to the actions and the words of the characters in that story? You're judging them. And in the context of story, that's actually a good thing, because when you judge other characters in the context of story, that is helping to form your own character. So if you've read the Chronicles of Narnia and you get to the Voyage of the Dawn Treader, the cousin Eustace is, well, let's just face it, kind of a brat. But when kids read that and they recognize that and they see the difference between bratty behavior and heroic behavior, that helps to form their understanding of what's good and what's bad. Here's a quote from Pryor. She says, "The desires that are cultivated by books and other forms of stories, including film, songs, and especially commercials, can pull us toward the good life or toward false visions of the good life. Reading well entails discerning what visions of life are false and which are good and true." And this relates really well with what I talked about in the last Know Why podcast episode. If we believe that there is some objective truth, that there is some objective goodness out there, then every story is really, or piece of art is communicating a perspective on that. Maybe they're disagreeing with that. That doesn't mean that everybody is producing a monolithic message, but it is a kind of repetition or smaller version of the truth, that there is truth out there, because somebody's saying, hey, here's this story, and then you react to it, or here's this piece of artwork and you react to it and you have a conversation about it. But if everything is subjective and there is no truth, and stories are merely entertainment to just tickle our minds for a while or help us escape from our own lives, then it doesn't matter if everything is customizable, but you also can't say that anything is good or bad. It's just 100% based on preference. The way that we approach art, the way that we approach entertainment really does betray a lot about what we think about the nature of reality and even what it means to be human, what it means to exist as a human. And if everything is customizable, whether that's movies or TV shows or increasingly books, and you can choose your own adventure, or maybe you can just have the BCI algorithm react to what's going on in your brain and give you the story that it decides you need at the moment. If that's our reality, then we will never be challenged. We're basically accepting that we're perfect and we don't need to grow. We will become more divided. We'll become less understanding. We will become less connected as a culture because we won't have any shared collective memories to talk about or discuss. That's why reading great books is called partaking in the great conversation, because you and ideally the community around you, whether that's classmates or friends that you're reading with, you are participating in a conversation with people who lived in the past, and you are considering their perspective. You're bringing your own unique perspective to it as well, and it's a conversation. But if everything is just entertainment based on our own preference, there really is no conversation to be had. But people won't grow, they won't flourish, they won't unite around anything like that. I'm going to end with something that the New York Times columnist and podcaster Ezra Klein said recently in a podcast episode where he was talking about why he doesn't use AI in writing, not even to summarize material. He has to read a lot of material for his job at the New York Times, including preparing for podcast interviews that he hosts. But he says that when AI summarizes something, it doesn't pick up on the unique thing that he might have picked up on, because everybody has a different perspective. So when you and your class all read the same book, you might have different reactions, different perspectives, different things that stood out to you. And that's not a bug, that's a feature, because that shows the diversity of humanity and the uniqueness of each of our minds. But we lose that if we can't all look at the same shared story and then react in our unique ways to it. There would be nothing, no growth, no perspective to share. So while it might seem like customizing everything to our preference is a celebration of diversity of interest and perspectives, it actually stunts those because it doesn't allow our perspectives to ever interact with each other. So I'm going to leave it there. Again, if you haven't listened to the last Know Why podcast episode talking about our story of reality, I would recommend that, because I think that this is a part of that conversation. And what we talk about as merely being entertainment is really key in how we understand life and how we understand human nature. Entertainment is just something that you do to pass time. Art is a conversation that you partake in, and it adds a lot of meaning to our lives. So I'll leave you with that thought, and I'll see you next time on the Know Why podcast.